This is the Italian Citizenship Podcast, hosted by Marco Permunian and Rafael Di Furia.
Well, hello there and welcome to another edition of the Italian Citizenship Podcast, presented by Italiancitizenshipassistance.com. We are back here live and in person again with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Of course, I'm Rafael Di Furia, and today we are here in Ferrara, Italy, talking a little bit about Italian citizenship. And today we wanted to talk about something maybe a little bit different than what we normally talk about. For example, normally we talk a little bit about kind of your ancestors who left Italy, but this episode we wanted to talk a little bit about the individuals who are the first generation born outside of Italy, because they will experience some interesting differences from what others potentially could experience, and there are maybe some little ins and outs that might be different for them, that they might have access to different processes. So Marco, maybe just firstly, because say for example someone's parents, born and raised in Italy, decide to move abroad but then have their child born outside of the country, what would things potentially look like for that person who is born abroad?
But just before Marco gets into his answer, a quick word from Italian Citizenship Assistants and Italian real estate lawyers. Italy, the country of our ancestors, a land full of history and splendor, now at your fingertips. On this journey from April 10th to 17th, you'll explore regions that bring ancestral stories to life and attend specialized seminars on Italian citizenship, real estate, and life in Italy. Spaces are limited. Begin your Italian journey today, and for more information and to book your spot, visit ItalianAncestryTour.com. Book before December 15th, 2024 to get a €500 discount per person and give the gift of Italy this holiday season.
What would things potentially look like for that person who is born abroad?
Definitely an application for citizenship for a person who was born outside of Italy to Italian parents tends to be, I should say, easier than an application for citizenship through maybe an Italian-born grandparent or great-grandparent, but that's not always the case. So there are people that actually end up being surprised by the fact that maybe they don't even qualify for citizenship, even if they were born to Italian citizens, unlike people who were born to American citizens, but whose parents were born in Italy, meaning people who have an Italian-born grandparent or even great-grandparent. In other words, there are situations where a first-generation person, so somebody who was born to Italian parents, does not qualify for citizenship by descent, unlike people who have Italian-born grandparents or great-grandparents. I will clarify that situation. Basically, any person who is of Italian descent and wants to apply for Italian citizenship by descent needs to meet one very important requirement, that there is no interruption in the transfer of citizenship from the person who was born abroad transferred to the applicant. Now, if it's a first generation, we have to look at whether there was an interruption of in the transfer of citizenship between the parent who was born in Italy and the child. And such interruption would have happened if the parent became a citizen of another country, like the US, prior to the birth of their child who was born abroad and prior to 1992. Now, if that happened, the person would not qualify for citizenship by descent, believe it or not, even if that person was born to an Italian parent or a parent who was an Italian citizen once. Now, somebody who has an Italian-born grandparent or great-grandparent, on the other hand, may end up qualifying for citizenship even if there is one or multiple generations more, as long as they're able to prove that citizenship was passed from one generation to the other without interruptions, meaning that the grandparent, for example, who was born in Italy was able to transfer their citizenship onto the parent who was born, say, in America. And that would have happened if the grandparent was not an American citizen at the time of the birth of the parent in the US. And then at that point, the parent itself would have passed their citizenship to the child, who is the applicant for citizenship. So, like I said, there are situations where being a first generation doesn't necessarily mean being able to qualify or qualify more easily for citizenship by descent compared to somebody who is the grandchild or the great-grandchild of an Italian citizen.
So then what would happen in the situation where maybe there was an interruption of citizenship and maybe that person would not have naturally been born with Italian citizenship? What options would be available to that individual in that sort of situation?
Both the child of a former Italian citizen and the grandchild of somebody who was an Italian citizen, but where there's an interruption in the transfer of citizenship, would be eligible to apply for citizenship through residency. So not citizenship by descent, but citizenship through residency, meaning after having spent a number of years in Italy as a resident, and that number of years is 3 for people who are the children or grandchildren of Italian citizens who don't qualify for citizenship by descent, as opposed to anybody else who establishes residence in Italy who needs to wait 10 years to be able to qualify for citizenship through residency.
Interesting. And so in that case, is that person technically applying for Italian citizenship by descent, or is that Italian citizenship through naturalization at that point?
It is Italian citizenship through naturalization, also known as citizenship through residency, so it has nothing to do with citizenship by descent, only there is a preferred path for people who have Italian ancestors who can apply for citizenship through residency sooner than other people.
And in that case, is there any difference between the rights or abilities that the person would have once they get their citizenship, or would both people then basically be recognized in the same way?
It would be the same situation, the same kind of citizenship that is given in terms of rights and duties, but in the case of citizenship by descent, the acquisition of citizenship is retroactive, so citizenship is granted from the time of the birth.
Very interesting, Marco. And so earlier in the episode, you mentioned a very important date, 1992. What would be the difference for somebody born before or after 1992?
So I mentioned 1992 because, generally speaking, it's very relevant for first-generation cases, meaning that if your parent became naturalized in the U.S. before you were born, then you don't qualify for citizenship by descent through that parent. However, if the naturalization of the parent occurred after 1992, so after Italy started to allow dual citizenship, then the naturalization would not have caused the loss of Italian citizenship for the parent, because after 1992, after the new law, Italy started to allow dual citizenship. So in that scenario, even if your parent became a U.S. citizen before you were born, but after 1992, then you would still qualify for Italian citizenship by descent.
That's really interesting, Marco. And so something else you mentioned before was that individuals who are looking at Italian citizenship through their ancestry, but by way of residency, will get special preferential treatment as far as the time that they have to be in Italy. Say, for example, maybe somebody outside of Italy, or for any other type of way that a first-generation individual might get Italian citizenship. Is there any other preferential treatment that is given to these individuals?
There is, in fact, a quicker way of applying for citizenship by descent offered to people who are the sons or daughters of Italian citizens, meaning that the consulate, not all of them, but some consulates, most of them, they offer special appointments for the so-called first-generation cases. So because the case is not too complex, like other cases involving several generations could be, then the consulate does offer, like I said, preferential paths to just submit the application for citizenship, meaning a different set of appointments which you can have access to only if you are a first generation cases. Now the rules changes depending on the consulate. Some consulates might offer those only to people who have an Italian parent who is still an Italian, still alive and registered with the IRA. Some other consulates may offer these kind of appointments to everybody as long as they are the children of Italian citizens. Also, speaking about special treatments, there is also a different scenario where the parent can register the birth of their child prior to the child turning 18. In that case, there is not even an application for citizenship by descent that needs to be made, meaning it's a simple registration of a birth certificate. So I think that qualifies as a special treatment, but again, only if you register the birth certificate of your child prior to your child turning 18 through the consulate. Otherwise, your child, once he or she becomes an adult, they will need to apply for citizenship by descent, and then, like I said, they may or may not have a special appointment or a shorter waiting time for that appointment through the consulate to apply through the consulate for citizenship by descent, depending on the consulate. Also, some consulates allow the children of people who were recognized as Italian citizens through a 1948 case to apply for citizenship by descent by accessing these kind of special appointments. So if they are parents who are recognized as Italian citizens through the court system in Italy, now the child who for whatever reason didn't join the trial in Italy, so was not recognized as well as an Italian citizen by the courts, can access this preferential path to apply for citizenship by descent through a consulate.
So Marco, you did mention people who are under the age of 18, and so maybe going in a little bit of a different direction here and kind of talking about, for say, somebody who they've just gone through citizenship by descent. Maybe they're first generation, maybe they're not. Their children. What happens with their children?
If you apply for citizenship by descent and you have a minor child, your child will be automatically included in your application as long as you submit their birth certificate. So they don't need an appointment with the consulate, they don't need a separate application, they don't need anything. They just need you, their parent, to include their birth certificate duly translated and apostilled in your application so that the consulate can grant citizenship not only to the parent but also to the minor child.
Absolutely fascinating. And so, Marco, I do want to say thank you for making yourself available again for this episode of the Italian Citizenship Podcast. But of course, if anybody is needing help with getting Italian citizenship, how can they get in contact with you and your team?
People can contact us through our website, italiancitizenshipassistance.com, or give us a call at the numbers on the website.
Absolutely fantastic. And of course, if you're interested in more information about getting Italian citizenship and all of the legalities that have to do with being an Italian citizen, be sure that you're subscribed to this YouTube channel as well as the audio-only podcast. But of course, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, that means you're automatically also subscribed to the Italian Real Estate Podcast, where Marco and I speak about making your home in Italy, purchasing a home, renting a home, and where to do so. Also, if you're interested in more about life abroad and living abroad, feel free to come over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rafael Di Furia, or you can search on YouTube, Google, or your favorite podcasting platform of choice for Not Your Average Globetrotter. But again, we have been here with Italian attorney Marco Permunian from ItalianCitizenshipAssistance.com. I'm Rafael Di Furia. We have been here in Ferrara, Italy. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we will see you all next time. Later.
Thank you.